Welcome back to Rad, where we're flashing back to the 90s, an era when everything was pretty rad. In the last 2 weeks, we've talked about 90s fashion trends, slang, music, and more. There are a lot of words that scream 90s to me, but these four especially.
Did I do that? 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 Did I do that?
Did I do that?
Did I do that? Did I do that? Did I do that? Did I do that?
Now, if you're not familiar with Family Matters, let me fill you in. This 90s sitcom was all about the Winslow family and their nerdy neighbor, Steve Urkel. Urkel was an odd guy. He was brilliant and lovable, but also goofy, unpopular, and clumsy. Since his clumsiness often resulted in some kind of destruction, we heard Steve say this catchphrase constantly. But there's another thing we saw in many of the early episodes. Urkel and Fufner, the school bully, exchanging words.
Again?
Not me, Potato Face.
Potato Face! Now there's a real mastery of the English language. Fellow students, I implore you, isn't there one of you with the guts to come forth and testify against this ruffian? Sheep! You're all sheep!
It's pretty obvious Fufner is a jerk. He bullies everyone, so it's no surprise why the audience loves it when Steve lands a comeback. We've all been in situations where we've exchanged insults with someone, right? Whether it's in fun or in anger, sometimes we use words like weapons, like when we gossip, start rumors, criticize, mock, tease, or insult. So what about you? Have you gotten angry because of someone's words recently? Have you been hurt or embarrassed by someone's words recently? Have you said anything to anger, hurt, or embarrass someone else recently? We've all been hurt by others' words, and we've all used our words like weapons. So today, we are going to talk about our words. It's probably not difficult for you to remember some of the hurtful things that have been said to you. Whether it was a family member, a friend, a bully, or a person on the internet, hurtful words stay with us. Words have a lot of power. So what do we do when someone's words hurt us deeply? And what do we do when we really want to use our words like weapons? Like we mentioned last week, there were a lot of people who thought Jesus was too radical. Now in the 90s, rad meant cool, but its real meaning has to do with being different, revolutionary, and countercultural. What Jesus said about loving God and others was radical, and what he teaches us about our words is pretty radical too. Throughout the series, we're looking to the Bible for practical advice on how to change the world with God's radical love, and that search has led us to the book of James. This book is actually a letter written by a guy named James, who was Jesus' brother. I don't know if James and Jesus ever got into fights when they were kids, but I would be pretty terrified to go verbally toe-to-toe with Jesus, and not just because he's God. When you read the stories of Jesus in the New Testament, it's clear that Jesus was pretty clever. Whenever someone tried to fight, trick, or debate with him, Jesus always had a comeback that made people stop and think. James was around Jesus his entire life, so he probably lost a few debates to him. Because he knew Jesus so well, the letter he wrote is packed with summaries of Jesus' teachings, retold in James's own words. James is known for its straightforward instructions for how to follow Jesus. These teachings might seem simple, but they have the power to create radical change. Let's see what radical things James has to say about our words in chapter 3. For we all stumble in many ways. If anyone does not stumble in what he says, he is mature, able also to control the whole body. Now if we put bits into the mouths of horses so that they obey us, we direct their whole bodies. And consider ships. Though very large and driven by fierce winds, they are guided by a very small rudder wherever the will of the pilot directs. So too, though the tongue is a small part of the body, it boasts great things. Consider how a small fire sets ablaze a large forest, and the tongue is a fire. The tongue, a world of unrighteousness, is placed among our members. It stains the whole body, sets the course of life on fire, and is itself set on fire by hell. Every kind of animal, bird, reptile, and fish is tamed and has been tamed by humankind, but no one can tame the tongue. It is a restless evil, full of deadly poison. With the tongue we bless our Lord and Father, and with it we curse people who are made in God's likeness. Blessing and cursing come out of the same mouth. My brothers and sisters, these things should not be this way. James uses a lot of word pictures to help us understand the power of our words. First, the bit. This small piece of metal lets humans guide huge animals with very little effort. In the hands of any rider, the bit is a helpful tool that keeps both human and horse on the right track. Then there's the rudder. James writes about the rudder of a boat, but maybe you're familiar with airplanes. Can you spot the rudder on an airplane? It's that tiny flap on the back of the tail. Isn't it amazing that such an enormous machine is steered by such a small thing? And then a spark. We use small, controlled sparks to light candles, campfires, fireplaces, and stoves. But an uncontrolled spark, like our uncontrolled words, can cause a significant amount of damage. The words we say may seem small, but they have the potential to make a significant impact. And when the words we say are harmful, the harm they cause can be significant too. You can see James lamenting in this passage about how difficult it is for us to control our tongues. We say hurtful things one minute and then turn around to pray or sing a worship song in the next. He's frustrated and fed up, probably with himself as well as with others. Remember when we said James often retold the teachings of Jesus in his own words? Let's take a look at one time when Jesus said something that sounds familiar. In this passage, some religious leaders showed up to exchange words with Jesus. They didn't like the radical things he had to say, so they often picked fights with him. This time, they tried to debate Jesus about the way his followers were eating. According to these leaders, Jesus' friends weren't following the right religious rules around food. Let's see how much Jesus actually cared about his disciples' eating habits. Let's look at Mark 7. He answered them, "Isaiah prophesied correctly about you hypocrites. As it is written, this people honors me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. They worship me in vain, teaching as doctrines human commands. Abandoning the command of God, you hold on to human tradition." And a little bit later, and he said, "What comes out of a person is what defiles him. For from within, out of people's hearts, come evil thoughts, sexual immoralities, thefts, murders, adulteries, greed, evil actions, deceit, self-indulgence, envy, slander, pride, and foolishness. And all these evil things come from within and defile a person." Here, we can make some important observations about words. Jesus' words might sound harsh. He isn't cruel, but he calls the religious leaders hypocrites and doesn't hold back from telling them the truth. God doesn't want our hypocritical words. No matter how many words we use to pray or worship, God isn't impressed with the holy things we say when we're also using our words to hurt others. And our words reflect our hearts. Jesus reminds us to look at what's in our hearts, because what's in our hearts determines what comes out of our mouths. If we're filled with greed, pride, or jealousy, it's not just our words we need to address, it's our hearts. Both Jesus and James knew this was true. The words we say matter because they're a reflection of who we really are. So we need to watch what we say and watch what's in our hearts. Can you imagine how your family, friends, school, or the world could be different if we decided not to use our words like weapons? If we could find a new way to use our words, the change would be radical. So do you want to see that radical change? Are you not sure what you think about Jesus yet, but you know you want to see more good and less hate in the world? Then James tells us how to love like Jesus. Radical people watch their words. Now, sometimes it's easier to remember the hurtful things that have been said to us than it is to remember the encouraging things. But people's encouraging words stay with us too. Even if we can't remember them word for word, we remember the way their words changed us. Since James used a lot of object lessons to talk about words, I'm going to give you a few as well. Words are kind of like tattoos. Once you get one, it doesn't go away. It might fade slightly over time, and you could try to have it removed or cover it up with another tattoo, but the message of the original will be etched into your skin for life. Like a tattoo, you can't take back the words you say. Yes, you can apologize for hurtful things you've said, but the wounds left by your words won't simply disappear. But your words of love, hope, and encouragement won't disappear either. They leave a mark that lasts. That's why it's so important to watch our words carefully, as if we're using binoculars. When we speak, we need to look at our words up close. Here's what to do with what we see. Wonder about your words. Whether you're speaking in person or online, pay attention to the words you say. Are they hurtful, helpful, true, kind? Spend extra time thinking before you speak. Before you send that text, post that comment, or make that joke, pause for a little bit longer than you usually would. It's so easy to be careless with our words, but this pause can help us think about the impact our words make. Forgive when words hurt. We can't forget, unhear, or unsay hurtful words, but we can forgive ourselves and others when we get hurt. Forgive each other. Forgive yourself. We're all still growing and learning. And choose words that help. Watching our words doesn't mean staying silent or only saying nice things. Like Jesus, sometimes we need to say words that are true, even if they're uncomfortable. So how do we know what to say? Try saying words that help, uplift, speak truth, or challenge others to be more like Jesus. This week, I want to encourage you to watch your words by writing down your words. You can use paper or take notes with your phone, but here's what I want you to do each day. Write down at least one thing you said, either hurtful or helpful. If it was hurtful, ask God to help you understand why you said what you did. Ask for strength and healing to be different. Then make it right with the person you hurt. If it was helpful, ask God to help you use more of your words to love others like Jesus would. It's not easy to be so careful about our words, but that's the point. Radical, important, world-changing things are never easy. This week, will you decide to do something simple but difficult? Will you do something radical? Will you strive to love God and others with the words you say? I sure hope so. Because radical people watch their words.